Well, there we are.
Good evening.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Let me see if we are actually live.
Yeah, I'm looking. I just clicked on your announcement came up. Yes, there's you, and there's so we are live.
Excellent.
Let
Excellent.
me get. Let me get. There's Big Eyes, Rob 93. We're getting some folks plugging in.
Okay. Sounds good. Hey, everyone. I'm just trying to find us on my iPad here, real quick, so I can see the chat.
You got it. We got two folks in so far.
Maybe because I'm doing it on StreamYard.
Oh yeah, you gotta open. Well, no, it should show up there. It'll
Yeah,
be
I thought it
alongside.
would.
Um, open. You probably got chat open. Open. Let's see.
I might have to get my headset. I'm hearing some
Live
distortion.
comments. Open live comments. Click on live comments
Okay.
right alongside private chat.
Hey, everyone.
There we
Hello.
go. There we go. One fish, two fish.
Hold on. I'll be right back.
Well, I guess I'm taking over Madfish Diva's channel. All right, let's go. What are we doing here? Ah, Big Easy. See if we can get down to the bottom. Good. Now the wormhole is here. Mag Guy is here. There she is. Let me refocus here a little bit. I don't know. I decided today I'm gonna make a studio. That's Val walking around back here. Val's in here feeding all the animals. She went out the back door.
Hello, Val.
There she is.
I'm going to put my headset on because I was getting a little bit of feedback.
You're getting feedback. Yeah, I'm not getting any, but I might be
Okay.
creating it.
Yeah.
How we
Hey,
doing?
everyone. This is going to be a little different for me, but I'm going to try to get comfortable. You're looking good, Father Fish.
Thank you so much. Tell me, that fish. Tell me your name.
Shar.
Shar.
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right, Shar.
Are you guys getting the feedback or is that just on? Let me mute my mic.
Aquatic Ness is here. Custom Wheel Horse Tractor Eric 83. Fish Tropic. Father Diva. Far out. That's Father and Diva, right? Yeah, we're quite a pair. Custom Wheel Horse Tractor Awesome Host. Sand Creek Aquatics is here. Anyway, I was looking at my video from last whenever it was yesterday, I guess, and looking at it today, and I decided I have got to set up a studio. You at least have a plain background. I have a jumble. It's a mess. So I'm going to be working this weekend to try to get a studio created. So it'll look nice.
Okay. I'm getting
Now that
some
I'm
feedback,
now,
guys.
now that I'm a now that I'm a wealthy YouTuber,
Oh yeah.
I sent out a letter today. I said on my first day monetized, I made 6 cents.
Oh yeah.
On my
Well,
second day, I made 61 cents. So
we
I
got.
figure at that rate of increase, by the end of the month, I'll be a millionaire.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh my goodness. I'm getting some feedback. Guys, tell me in the chat. Yeah. I'm trying to work on that. I put my headset on.
Aquatic
Hello.
Nest says there's an echo. It
Yeah.
must be me. Do I need to control? I don't know how I control my volume. I can't shut off my mic.
Right. Do you have me in another window open?
I've got the window open, but I've got the sound turned off. Let me do this. Let me go back up. I've got my mic turned down. I'm now muted. Is that better?
Yeah. Well, I
Okay.
still hear myself. So I don't know where that's coming from. I got my headset on. Working. Is there still an echo?
Well, there was a. Yeah, I hear an echo now.
Yeah, I have my headset on, so it shouldn't have an echo. Do we both need to have on a headset, Rob? I know Rob is driving.
I don't
Is that
have
better?
it. I've got a monitor on. I just muted my monitor. So
Hello?
maybe is it okay now?
I'm hearing it. Guys, you still hear it? Diva, turn your sound down. Okay, let me turn my sound down. Let me find it here.
Echo, echo.
Oh, Stop the mic. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
If I turn, can I just turn my speaker headphone
Okay.
off my laptop?
It says Father
Did
Fish
that make me go silent?
headphones.
Or is
Father
that the
Fish, do you
solution?
have some headphones?
Can I be heard? Father Fish needs headphones. Yeah, I don't have a set of headphones.
Okay. I think we can work through it. I'm not hearing it now. Is everybody else hearing it?
Am I still being picked up?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Everybody hear me? Are we good now?
God's Aquatic says yes.
Okay, so we're
Presumably,
good
he's
now.
answering my question.
So, Father Fish, thank you so very much for coming. I really do appreciate it. This is so
The
exciting.
chatters are better, Aquatic Nest says. Okay, so I had to turn my speaker headphone off.
Okay, but can you hear me?
And I guess StreamYard is picking up my voice on its separate microphone, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, I started early, Jesse, because I was just.
No, I can't hear Diva.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is how we, Mr. B said that audio is fine, but now he can't hear me.
Okay, I just increased the volume a little.
Okay.
Do we still have feedback?
I'm not hearing it. Do we still have feedback, guys? I think we're good.
Okay, I turned my volume way down and I can hear you. I'm
Okay,
okay now.
sounds good. So thank you so much, Father Fish, for coming. This is so exciting.
Thank
Um,
you. Nice to be here.
it's a pleasure to have you. Since you first were mentioned in LRB Aquatics live stream, I was like, oh my goodness, and started following you on YouTube. I feel like I have learned a great deal, and I have gotten over like maybe 80% of my hesitation about a dirted tank.
All right. So we're still working on that 20%. Is that
Yeah,
it?
I'm getting there. Well, I think once I set it up and have it running, and
You
I
bet.
just got a new 60-gallon a used tank from someone, a coworker. So that's going to be my father fish tank.
Wonderful. Well, I got a call today from a woman who set up a dirted tank under my council a couple of days ago, a week ago. And she said that the water was brown and she couldn't get it clear. So I said to her, there are two reasons, two possibilities. She had Oscars in there. So one is that the Oscars are stirring things up. The other is that your sand is not deep enough, that the dirt's bleeding through. And she looked and she said, aha. She saw that the sand was shallow in one spot, so she's added more sand, and that solved the problem. So that's
Excellent.
something that happens that people think it's failing, and it's really not. It's just not quite set up properly.
So your rule is 3 inches of sand, a minimum of
No,
3 inches.
no. My rule is an inch of dirt and 2 inches of sand.
Okay.
And then if it's not working right, add some more sand. So
Okay.
my rule is if you're having a problem, add sand.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, I'm going to take a minute, if you don't mind, Father Fish, and welcome everybody. I usually like to be a good hostess, and it seems like we got a full house today. So, welcome Fish Tropic, 44 Mad Guy, Denny's Fish Tanks, Aquatic Nest, Big Easy Support Group, Custom Wheel Horse Tractor, Eric 83, uh, D from Down the Wormhole, Scott's Aquatics, Rob 93 Aquatics, Mr. B's Fishing Things, Aquatic Nest, my Anessa Boo, One Fish, Two Fish, my Hilly Sis, Hillstream Sister, and let's see, Sand Creek Aquatics, welcome, welcome. HC Aquatic, we're about HC and I are about to go crazy right now. We'll get into that later. Let's see. Did I miss anybody? Chewy, welcome Chewy. Um,
Punchy Paints is here.
F and S Fish Room, Jubal TV, Manali, thank you, welcome. Let's see. Kaylor's Aquatic, hashtag OG Squad. Um, and I think if I missed you, please at me in the chat so I can recognize you and say hello. Hey, Punchy, 54 Punchy, Punchy Pants is here. Yeah, we
Ah,
got a great group. So, Father Fish, I prepared some questions,
oh,
and
good.
so let's just get started with those if you're ready.
You betcha. That's fine.
Okay, excellent. So, how did you acquire the name Father Fish?
Oh, well, now, yeah, I thought about this earlier today, and I decided that I will answer this question, but only if you answer the same question, because
Okay,
I'm curious about how you acquired your name. I'll go first.
okay,
About, golly, how long has it been? Almost 20 years ago, I had a fish room on the lanai of my trailer, of my double wide, in a local trailer park here in Nokomis, Florida. And some of the guys from the Tampa club were coming down visiting, and they came kind of regularly. So they had become pretty good friends. Well, one day one of them was walking through my house and he noticed a picture hanging on the wall in my bedroom. And it was a picture of me taken about 15 years before that, wearing clerical garb. I was in the ministry. So he began calling me Father Fish. And it was an inside joke because nobody else knew where that came from. Finally, one of his friends, one of the other fellows who was coming down, found the same picture and realized what it was. So since then, I've been known as Father Fish, and I kind of liked it, and it stuck. And when I opened my shop, I decided to call it Father Fish Aquarium. So that's the story.
Well,
Now it's
that's a great story, and I saw the front of your fish shop, and it is so enchanting. On Royal Aquatics video, I just love the way it is. It's very inviting, so I love that. So I'm looking forward to coming down and visiting.
oh, you bet. Be wonderful to have you.
Thank you. So to answer your question, I was a big I'm a big Tina Turner fan, and I love the movie Mad Max.
Oh my.
And so when I was on AOL, I was called Mad Vixen.
Huh.
Well, when I thought about it, I wanted to add that when I was thinking of a name for YouTube. Of course, I wanted it to be Mad. Of course, I love fish, and I am a diva.
There
So
you go.
that's why I am called Mad Fish Diva.
Well, I love it. I
Thank
think it's
you.
great. And I've been watching you since I've been on YouTube, and
Thank
I
you.
just enjoy your channel, enjoy your chats. It's great fun. Just
Thank you.
being a part of this family is has been an absolute joy for me.
Well, we love having you. You have just provided so much knowledge. I mean, so I've been keeping fish for a little over 50, almost 50 years. I started out with one single black molly. I tell this story to people all the time. I saw an aquarium in my science class in elementary school, and so I wanted a fish. So I went and started researching. That's when you had to go to the library and actually crack open a book. That was pre-internet, and so I told my dad. I said, "Well, Dad, I want a fish," and he said, "Okay, you can have a fish." Well, while I was doing my research, I found out how to tell if a live bear was pregnant.
Huh.
So I went to the fish store and I've got one black pregnant molly, and I put her in the tank, and that's when they had the slate bottom meta tanks,
Yeah,
with the
yeah, yeah.
little corner filter. I don't even
You
remember
bet.
if they had heaters. I think it was just a tank with a filter. It surely didn't have a light on it. I think I might have had like a little desk light or lamp or something over it.
Yeah, I don't think heaters have been around for 50 years.
Yeah, and so that Molly had babies, and of course, my father came into my room and he said, "I told you to get one fish," and I said, "I did get one fish. It just so happened to be a pregnant fish." So that's how I see you, Jesse. Yeah, Mad Vixen. So that's how I kind of got into the hobby 50 years ago.
Wonderful. The fairy farts is yeah. Punchy pants is jerking my chain.
Punchy pants. Oh my goodness.
She
So
says
welcome,
so.
So welcome. I see Backwoods Serpentarium channel and Melvin of Storm Riders. Welcome. If I missed anybody else, please, like I say, charge it to my head and not my heart. And Lalani's Kitchen. Welcome, guys. So we are talking with Father Fish. Um, you can watch the replay to find out about that name. And so I'm going to go to the next question. So,
Yes.
Father Fish, how long have you had your pet shop slash fish store? Because it's more than a fish store. You've got all kinds of wonderful pets in there.
Well, I
And
do.
what
And
was the
it's,
origin
yeah,
of that?
gee. Well, I mentioned to you that I had a fish room in my house, had about 100 tanks in it, and I was selling on Aquabid and enjoying it, having a good time, and it was fun. And then I got burned real bad by a couple of people, and it just put me off the whole thing. So
Mm.
I decided to quit doing that, and I began looking around. Decided that what I could do was I could be a copywriter. I could write letters and forms and other sorts of things for companies. I've got a strong background in writing and make a living doing that. So I got all set up to do that. And then a friend here in the community called me and said, "We're getting rid of our fish store and we want to know if you want it."
Oh,
Well,
wow.
ah, so I thought about it. Now, my mother's sister, my Aunt Dorothy, who I love dearly, she told me that she could really imagine me owning a pet shop. So I thought, well, it would be fun to do that for a year or so. And I can always, get back to doing this. That was 15 years ago. So I
Mm.
went from a little tiny shop and was complaining to one of my customers one day about the fact that my landlord didn't like me and I was stuck in this little tiny corner. And he said, "Well, I've got a piece of property to a uh, a retail property that is coming available. Come take a look at it." So he showed me this 3,000 square foot warehouse sitting right on a main drag. And I just fell in love instantly. My imagination went wild. And so I got it and I spent a couple of months building it out and then opened it. That was about 8 ago in this location.
Okay.
So, and here I am.
I love it. It's a beautiful location, a beautiful spot. I'm going to just mute myself for 1 minute because my grandson is in the other room with his tablet blaring. Just give me 1 second.
Go for it. Somebody asked me a question, and I was just trying to back up to it. Storm Rider says, "Hello, Father Fish." I don't find the question. Oh, Chewy was mentioning Aquafunk,
Oh,
Jay,
yeah.
and I wanted to mention something about that because Jay Funk is going to be coming to our Venice Aquarium Society to do a program on the third Thursday of this month. And we're going to do it as a live stream. So
Oh,
everybody will
excellent.
be able to join in our club meeting, at least his portion of it. We're going to try to do it so that we can have some interaction between the live audience, the club members, and the people tuning in. So we'll try to get the technology together for that. but we at least will be broadcasting his presentation as a live stream. That'll be Thursday a week, the third Thursday of the month.
That sounds good. What time should we
The
be
20th,
there?
7 o'clock. We're going to
7
start at
o'clock.
7. We'll start at 7. The program will start around 7:30. We'll be gearing it up. We also have an auction afterwards. So if it goes well, we may just hang in for the evening and cover as much as we can.
Excellent. Well, that is my stream time, but I will gracefully bow to you guys. Jay is a great friend and an amazing fish keeper. So I will definitely help you promote it and I will look forward to having the night off and just enjoying you guys.
Well, we can get you in there.
No,
We'll get you online with us. That'll be great fun.
no, Father Fish, I was looking forward to the night
Ah,
off.
love
Oh,
it.
so Susan is here. Blake Aquatics, thank you so much for coming. Anna Kai, the one, welcome, welcome, welcome. Anybody else, please at me so I can say hello. K Money, hey K Money, how are you, sis? Good to see you. Thanks so much for coming. So let's go to the third question.
Yes, ma'am.
If I were to write a book about Father Fish and fish keeping, what would you consider your most memorable moments in the hobby?
Oh my God. Well, let me show you. I'll show
Okay.
you. Ah, probably can't see this, but we'll try.
All right.
See if I can do this without a glare. Now, can you read that?
Let's see. Tell us what it says, Father Fish.
I will. Let me read it. It says presented to the Reverend Louis Foxwell in grateful recognition for outstanding service to the National Aquarium in Baltimore. And it's signed by the chairman of the board, Frank Gunther,
Oh,
1982. So I was on the founding board of the National Aquarium for 5 years.
oh, that's amazing. That's quite an accomplishment. That's well worth noting. So how did you I've heard you and this is going to go off a little bit off script a little bit, but I've heard you talk about being in Baltimore. Tell us about that time.
Well, let's see. I'm from Maryland.
Okay.
To explain that, I have to go back a little in history. My father, my father was born in Baltimore. His parents were both deaf. They had been deaf since birth. They went to the state school for the deaf, were married as soon as they graduated. And there was another deaf man who was a minister who put together a church for my grandparents and all of their friends. There were 100 or more folks in that church. My father grew up in that church. As a child, he was the only hearing person. And very often he had to interpret for hearing speakers who came to to talk to the congregants. Someday I'll tell some of those stories. They're really
Okay.
good. Um, when the minister, the old man, his name was Charles Moylan, Daniel Moylan. When Daniel was dying on his deathbed at 85, he called my father in. My father was 24 years old. He was umpiring, playing semi-pro baseball. He was umpiring professional baseball for the old International League. He um, he was working as the shop foreman at American Hammer Piston Company, making all of the bearings that went into all of the war machine, all of the tanks and all the other engines. So he was pretty well established in life. By that time, he had three children and was building a life. The old minister said to him, Lewis, you have to take over this church because if you don't, it will fail. And my father had such a relationship with this gentleman that he went home, said to my mother, we're going into the ministry. And that was the beginning. He spent the next 10 years. He was not a high school graduate, he was a high school dropout. He spent the next 10 years getting an education, working in little tiny country churches until finally he was able to do this deaf ministry full time. When he got the full time appointment, he moved the family from Southern Maryland to Baltimore City. And that was my introduction to Baltimore. I was in high school then, went to Baltimore City College for 2 years, and then spent the next 10 years in college and at universities preparing myself to take over his ministry.
Oh, very
That's kind of
interesting.
a long answer, but it,
No, that's great. That's great. I love it. So, being from Baltimore, I can be presumptuous and say that you like blue crab?
honey, I was born and raised on the Chesapeake Bay. My grandparents, my mother's parents, owned a big farm down on Kent Island, and I spent all of my summers catching soft crabs and hard crabs and rockfish, and spent all my time on the water. I learned how to pick a crab before I learned how to read.
That sounds like me because my family's all over Florida. I tell them my family is from Tallahassee to the Keys.
Amen.
And so I grew up crabbing and
Yeah,
eating crab, and I love it. I was just in Baltimore in August, and the first thing I told my cousin I wanted to do once I rested after my flight was go down to the wharf.
you bet. You bet. Did you get a Phillips crab cake? Did you?
No, I didn't. I just got the regular bushel of blue crab, and I
Oh,
just,
oh,
yeah, I just wanted a bushel of blue
nice,
crab. And
nice.
she set me up on her deck with some paper and some plastic and a Corona beer,
There you go.
not to be confused with the virus.
You bet. My daughter is up there. She's on Kent Island, and she
Really?
sends me. Yeah, she sends me pictures of
It's
steamed crabs every month just to taunt me.
Well, blue crab is pretty popular down in Florida too now.
Well, it is. And I tell you, one of the things that makes it easy for me in Florida is that there's really no difference between being here and being up on the Chesapeake Bay. It
Yeah,
gets colder up there.
yeah.
The winter's not as nice, but the water's the same. And in fact, it's more fun here. I
Oh
catch more
yeah.
things here. It's a lot more interesting.
So you recently spoke about guppies, live bears, and the 9-year-old fish keeper. What other advice would you have for someone just starting out in the hobby?
Hmm. Well, I get a lot of new people coming in here, and usually they're people who have failed. They've been to the big box stores, they bought their kit, they took it home, they filled it up with water and threw fish in it, and they all died. So they went back and got more fish, threw them in there, and they all died.
Yep.
So by the third time, they're either in my store trying to figure out how to do it right, or the tank is sitting on the curb. So the first thing I do is I tell them to empty the tank. I sell them dirt, and I sell them sand. So from the very first tank, I make them set up a dirted tank,
Okay.
and it works. It works consistently. It's the safest way to create a tank that's going to be balanced, that's going to be healthy, that's going to be able to maintain itself with fish in it. And of course, it scares everybody silly.
Well, it sure
Uh,
be scared me.
well, I get the new people starting on it, so they're not scared of it. They're just doing what Father Fish told them to do.
Absolutely.
And it worked. So, yeah,
So,
it's kind of strange advice, but it's there are a lot of ways to set up fish tanks, a lot of ways to do the hobby. I do this because it works 100% of the time. If you do it right, you don't fail. And that's really the secret for new people, for me. Give them a chance to be successful right out of the gun. And they'll be able to do it. They'll be able to keep the tank going. If in a couple of years it all goes downhill, they at least will have had a couple of positive years of experience, and they'll be anxious to do it again.
well, that's really great advice. Really great advice because we want to get them started and be successful because that keeps the hobby going for sure. So, the next question. As a young girl, I remember only a few tropical fish in the hobby, maybe five. Um, at what point do you think that changed, and how did that come about?
What was the question? There were only five what?
I think there were maybe five. When I would go to the pet store, I think there was only maybe five tropical fish that were available for sale, and
Okay,
that might have
gotcha.
included goldfish back when I first started. Do you know what the evolution of that is? I mean, compared to what we have now?
Yeah, I do. Um, let's see, you're talking 50 years ago.
Yes.
I go back um, about 70 years ago to the 1950s, the late 40s and early 50s. And at that point in time, you're right. There was nothing coming, nothing to speak of coming out of South America, nothing coming from Africa or the Far East. It was all fish that were being raised in Florida that were being shipped up in milk cans by train to to the to the cities along the eastern seaboard. Now you were down here, so you were close to the farmers. The farmers really began farming in the 50s, the 1950s. So by the 70s, they were fairly well established. But even then, they didn't have a lot of different kinds of stock. Things were beginning to come in. The
Mhm.
real change occurred in about the early 50s when a very dear friend of mine, um, Merle Cohen. Merle was on the aquarium board with me, but I first met him when I was a 14-year-old kid. He had a shop in Baltimore City on Greenmount Avenue called the Aquarium. And his brother was running a farm down here in Florida and was shipping fish up to him. What Merle figured out was how to use plastic bags to ship fish. That occurred in the early 50s. And that was the beginning because that was what made it possible to move fish over long distances and keep them alive and healthy. Obviously, oxygen was around back then and it was compressed because there were welders using it. So it was a simple matter of putting oxygen in the bag, sealing the bag by tying it or putting a rubber band or whatever, putting it in a box and shipping it. And that was the beginning.
Wow. That's amazing because I mean, that is, even the thought of shipping a fish right now, I was supposed to send a bunch of my Amica Splendens to Dan's Fish. I went and bought all the supplies, the boxes, the insulations, the bags, everything, and totally chickened out.
Ah,
So I still have those fish today because I was just so scared to ship them. I was just like, oh my God. So the next question I have, which is the last question, is of course definitely for you to tell us, and this is gonna be promotion because I know that you're trying to do your Get Gill store, um, about your products that you're going to be having and your dirt supplement.
well, thank you. The what I decided to do about the dirt, I add a number of elements to my soil in order to enrich it. And I've got a little story about that because something happened just recently that caused me to rethink one of those elements. But answer your question first. Then I'll go
Okay.
back to this other issue. What I decided to do was rather than ship a box of dirt, I'm going to ship the the supplements, which will be in a much smaller package, with instructions about what kind of dirt to buy and how to mix it.
Hmm.
What I will ship is a package that will make about 100 gallons worth of dirt, and it'll cost $20. We'll have all the supplements in it. So there's that. I also have another item that I've been marketing. It's sodium thiosulfate crystals. Now that's the active ingredient in all of the dechlorinators. So with this, you're going to be able to buy for $10 enough crystals to take the chlorine out of 1,000 gallons of water. So it's going to be a lot cheaper, and frankly, a lot easier to use. There will probably be some foods that will come into that line, specialty kinds of foods. There are foods being manufactured in Japan that are some of the very best in the world. They're really not available in this country in small packages. So I'll be buying it in bulk, which I've been using for years, repackaging it and making it available in smaller quantities to the folks on Get Gills, the YouTube
Okay.
Fish Fam. Beyond that, the first live things I'll be listing are plants.
Okay.
I have a farm that raises literally hundreds of different kinds of plants, probably 1,000 plants altogether.
Oh
And they've
wow.
given me permission to list their plants, use their pictures on my Get Gills channel. So I'll
Okay.
be listing. I've got one or two now. There will be many, and it's going to be a special kind of deal. So you'll be able to buy 6 bunches of these plants, any selection, for $25. So
Wow.
about $4 a bunch, and that doesn't include all of the rooted plants. So there will be that as well. Then beyond that, I'll be doing fish. It'll be a while
Okay.
before I get to that, but I've got a few already. I just got a couple of dozen clown killies in that are doing quite well. So as soon as they start spawning, I want to be able to make clown killies available. It's a fabulous little fish, a real nano fish. that's a lot of fun and really pretty easy to keep. Now, back to the earlier issue. I have been recommending diatomaceous earth as a supplement for increasing calcium and carbonates in the tank. And I can't remember who it was. So I should go back and look. And I will go back and look. One of the guys who follows these conversations said to me, "Isn't it true that diatomaceous earth is largely silicates?" And I said, "No, diatoms create calcium. Their skeletons are calcium."
Right.
And then I decided I better go back and research this and find out if I know what I'm talking about. And sure enough, he was right. The diatomaceous earth is fossilized, and in the process of it becoming fossilized, it the calcium is replaced by silicates.
Okay.
Okay, so let's see. I'm just about to there. So I had to. I thanked him for questioning my claim. Said to him, "You're right that the fossilized form of diatomaceous earth, which is the only form available, is predominantly silicates." Now, I wanted to find out who it was. I'm just going back to look so I can uh, find. I'm not finding it. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So there's a good example of somebody calling me on something. They were absolutely right. I had misinformed myself because I was assuming that these were actually I didn't realize they were mined from ancient beds.
Okay.
I had assumed somehow that it was that diatoms were somehow harvested, which of course is ridiculous on the face of it. So anyway, I wanted to tell that story, and I need to tell that story a bunch of times. Here it is.
Okay.
Green Thumb Aquariums was the one who brought that attention to me. Green Thumb Aquariums. So a new YouTuber who's got a lot to say and a lot that's really pretty smart. You might
Okay.
check out his channel, Green Thumb Aquariums.
So, Father Fish, with that said, so I use crushed oysters that I get from the chicken feed place in my tanks. What do you think
That's
of
good.
using that as part of your ingredient?
No, that's fine. That works well. Crushed coral also works. The problem with those things, and there is a problem with it, and
Okay.
that is that they tend to get coated with bacteria,
Hmm.
and when they do, it prevents them from leaching out the calcium. So you need to add a handful every few months just
Okay.
to keep it leaching in.
Because I use that because I love mystery snails and it helps with their shells.
You bet. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's real smart. And I think you've just given me the answer to my issue, which is what do I do now?
There you go, and
That's
it's
perfect.
cheap
That's
too.
perfect. I love it. We're
It's
gonna do
cheap.
that.
Because one thing
It
about
is
me is
cheap.
I love fish, but I love keeping fish on a budget.
You
I
bet.
don't like
You
spending a
bet.
lot of money on things. I mean, certain things you can't get around. You want to make sure that they're high quality, which means they may cost a little more. But anything where I can cut a little bit of cost, that I will do it.
And that's a big part of what I'm all about too. My shop demonstrates it. I'm not here to sell a lot of equipment. I'm here to help people figure out how to keep fish alive, keep them healthy, and get them breeding and have fun with it.
Absolutely.
And you don't need to spend a lot of money to do that. You just need to be smart. Try to duplicate Mother Nature rather than try to create your own nature.
Right. So you've talked about like collecting soils and things from like riverbeds and things like that. Tell us more about that.
I'm going to be doing some videos on that.
Okay.
And there's some creative ways to do it. One of the things that would be interesting, and this kind of leads into a much broader conversation. If you
Okay.
take the frame of a box without a top or a bottom, the same size as any fish tank, plunk that down in a pond, and then what's inside that box, scrape it all out, throw it in a bucket, and bring it home. Plants, little microscopic stuff, all of that. Bring it all home, put it in the tank, plant the plants, catch a few fish if you can, put them in there. You will be literally duplicating a piece of nature.
Hmm.
So that's what I'm going to be trying to do and demonstrating. But the issue is this: there's a channel on YouTube called the Ant Nation. It's a young man who has an absolutely astounding collection of insects
Mhm.
and creates colonies of ants. He's been doing it for a few years. He's got a huge following, but he's begun to discover something he didn't know when he started, which is that it requires many different kinds of colonies of animals, particularly insects, to keep the ant colony healthy. So he's been introducing other kinds of insects into the ant colony and creating a very rich environment. He's now at a point of adding higher order animals,
Hmm.
such as uh, reptiles, lizards, frogs, turtles, fish, those kinds of things, to these terrariums as a way of really creating a, a whole natural environment. And I think that's the key for us in tropical fish, to create an environment where a number of different kinds of animals can live and thrive.
Sounds like a plan to me. I love the fact of so let me talk to you about a discussion that I've been having. So my biggest tank to date has been my 55-gallon Hillstream tank. And when I was creating that tank, I did a lot of research. And so almost all the research that I did, with a couple of varying ones, which you're going to always find some outliers, was that it needed super high flow and a manifold. And my response, which I talked about in my last live stream, was we are still dealing with closed systems. So sometimes when we're trying to create biotopes of sorts, we have to keep that in mind. What would be your thought on that type of situation? How we, as because your aquariums are natural, they're oftentimes biotope esque with lots of plants. One thing I noticed, you have a lot of plants with your cichlids.
That's right. And they do quite well. The,
Mm-hmm.
the only problem I have is with Plecostomus, because they love to eat plants. Now, I don't keep fish like silver dollars in with my plants because that's, or pacus, because those are voracious plant eaters. I think you have to look at Lucas Bratz and what he's doing. He's evolved from hang on the back filters, canister filters, all of this stuff, to the point where in many of his tanks he has no water flow at all,
Right.
except what occurs naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And he has very healthy, balanced tanks. I think
Yes.
I was listening to an interview last night that was talking about the difference between river fish and lake fish or pond fish. And the difference is that the pond fish have a much higher tolerance for carbon dioxide and dirty water, if you will, than do the river fish. So if we kind of keep that in mind as we create our environments, if it's going to be a very quiet, still kind of tank, then we want fish that live in quiet, still water.
Mm-hmm. Well, the some of the research that I did say that the hill streams are often so. I don't think a lot of people understand that just like with killifish, many of the natural environments that these fish are in are flooded areas that recede at certain times of the year. So some of these fish that may even be in uh, flowing streams, some of those streams flood and then they recede, and those fish are still in little pockets and puddles on the side, and so and they're thriving and living in those environments.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Well,
So
the best example, and there are a lot of them, the killifish are certainly a perfect example of that. The
right.
best example is the betta.
Mhm.
In the wild, bettas live in tiny little puddles,
Mhm.
bodies of water that uh, evaporate down to the point where there may only be a puddle that size that they'll be living in for months at a time until it rains again and fills it up. So these are fish that the reason they breathe air is because the water they're living in has such low dissolved oxygen that they couldn't survive in it without breathing air.
Right. So what would
So
you
the notion
consider?
that a
Go ahead.
betta needs to be in a 50-gallon tank with a lot of water flow is counterintuitive.
So what would be your ideal or your I mean you have your I love watching your store tour. I mean, the one thing that I really loved was the turtles with the big trunk in that enclosure. I thought that was the coolest thing I've ever seen with the volunteer ferns on it. But
Oh
what
yeah,
if you had the endless resources to create something? What would you create?
my backyard. I, I live on a creek.
Okay. And what would you put in that creek?
I'd just be more interested in what's already in it. I think.
Okay.
There.
Yeah.
I thought one of my all-time favorite fish is the abba abba,
Hmm.
Gymnarchus niloticus. It's also called what is it called? The oh Nile River fish.
Hmm.
It's never been bred in captivity. It is available uncommonly uh, out of uh, out of the Nile and its tributaries. essentially from the lower Nile, which is the Ivory Coast, where a lot of the killies are from. It's a fish that gets 4 foot long.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
shaped like a torpedo. It has a dorsal fin that runs the entire length of its body. It's round, snub nose, and pointy tail, and it has no eyes, at
Hmm.
least no functioning eyes. It can swim as fast backwards as it can forward, and it operates by sonar and by electric fields. It can feel vibrations, and it picks up the electric field of other fish. It eats other fish.
Hmm.
I've got them up to 2 foot long. I got a
Wow.
group of larger ones about a year ago. They did not fare well. I
Hmm.
think there was a problem in shipping them. The
Hmm.
Nile River fish, Abba Abba, ABA, ABA. Absolutely. I've thought about introducing that fish to some local waters. I wouldn't dare do it. My
You'd be in big trouble.
would not dare. Don't ever believe I would do such a thing. I would never do that. But it would be interesting. Ah, it's
Yeah, you would be in big
a pretty ornery animal. You can't keep them with anything else.
and you're in the home of the invasive species.
Oh, I
There,
sure am. Everything
Florida,
loves Florida.
yes. And it's amazing because like I said, I have a lot of family there. I hear about African snails. Of course, the iguanas or the geckos or whatever they are taking over.
Yeah, they have.
Everybody, every body of water has alligators in it. Of course,
Right.
the big snakes. It's just Florida's going back. I tell people all the time, well, you know that a lot of these beautiful properties are built on Everglades and wetlands, and the animals
You
don't
betcha.
realize that. So they're going back to where they're instinctively, going back to these homelands, for lack of a better term. So what do you expect?
Yeah, right. That's true.
I I
Let's
mean, I
see.
just
Yeah,
I have
Taylor said he needs another black ghost knife. He
so
lost a
far.
12 inch. I've got a bunch of them, but they're smaller. They're not big.
So, Father Fish, we're getting close. I don't want to hold you. I want to be very respectful of your time. I know you're probably still there at the store.
You bet.
What would
Well,
you
I'm
like?
just delighted to be here. This has
Well,
been great fun for me.
I appreciate it so much. I really do. I can't begin to tell you because like I said, I admire you and what the knowledge and the wisdom that you're bringing to the hobby. I know a lot of more knowledgeable fish keepers oftentimes are not on YouTube, which is one thing
That's
LRB.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that Lucas has been doing is he's been touring and going and showing us their amazing fish rooms. So I really
Yep.
appreciate you coming. In closing, what would you like to share with with the viewers as far as any advice or any little nuggets?
Gee whiz. You know, I am so captivated by the fish fam here on YouTube. Frankly, I've never run into anything quite like this. The level of excitement, of interest, of support, it just amazes me. And I'm captivated by it. So I don't have any advice at all. I'm thoroughly enjoying the whole process.
Yeah, it is great. We have an amazing community. A lot of us have gotten to know each other personally. We talk online and offline, um, and everybody's so supportive. And of course, I would be remiss not to mention that we're still raising money for candy overhauls.
Yep.
So I know Bob has been posting the link in the chat, and I really appreciate it. We're also supporting people by running their playlists. So we ask that you please keep that in mind. And if you see um, like playlist raids for like Rob 93 and others, um, I'm so far off. You could run my playlist. I would appreciate it. But I would like to see Rob get monetized for sure. And I think
Amen.
that Jesse also asked that we run Carson's playlist as well. But I also would be remiss. I don't know if many of you realize that Big Rich of Ohio Fish Rescue's wife, Tracy, is in critical care, and we are keeping her in our thoughts and prayers. And I ask that everybody please send warm
Amen.
wishes.
Amen.
She is such a little dynamo. I mean, I've seen her run circles, and she's out there with those guys when they're doing things. So I ask that you please keep them in your thoughts and prayers. Keep her lifted up, and we will pray for her speedy recovery and, of course, the
Amen.
support of her family. So,
Absolutely.
Dr. Fish, like I said, I wanted to be very respectful of your time. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you coming on with me today. I think we learned a great deal. I can't wait to set up that tank. I was like, well, how can I do? So maybe I'll just get a plaque and put at the bottom. This is Father Fish's tank. Because and so with that said, just real quick. So this is a 60-gallon tall. To begin with, what would you recommend that the depth of that substrate be?
Okay. Put an inch of mud in the bottom.
Okay.
It frankly doesn't matter what it is. Get some black cow manure, some peat
Right.
moss, some potting soil, mix them up together, wet it thoroughly, get it like mud pies, pour
Okay.
it into the tank an inch deep,
Okay.
and then get a couple of bags of silica sand
Okay.
from the local pool store
So
and
you
pour,
saying
pour
pool?
that
Is
swimming
that
pool
the
filter sand.
pool filter
Yeah,
sand? Okay.
yes. Pour that on top of the dirt until you've got it 2 inches deep.
Okay.
Then cover that whole thing with a towel or a plate or something so that when you put the water in, you don't stir it up.
Disturb it. Okay.
And then once you get it full, never clean it. Never
Never,
stir it
never,
up.
never, never. I
Never,
remember that from
never,
Susan's
not
stream.
until you're dead and gone. Then you can disturb it.
They can pour it over my grave.
There you go. Amen. Mine too. That'll
well,
be perfect.
well, thank you so much, and I hope that your health is improving. I know you've had a couple of procedures recently, so we will keep
Yeah.
you in our prayers
Thank
as
you.
well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. I've got to get some dinner, and I'm going to let you go and be conscious of your time.
I
Thank you,
love it. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. You are so welcome. Thank you. You have been a very gracious and knowledgeable host, and we really appreciate you. So I am going to wrap this up and end the stream. Thank you, everybody, so much for coming. Please remember to hit that like button. Leave a comment later if you want. We're going to let Father Fish go. It's
Oh,
That's quite 8, but we started a little early. And you guys take care. And as always, keep it splashy, not
amen.
trashy.
God bless
Viva,
you, man. Fish.
Viva Al. God bless
Bye
you
bye.
too, Father Fish. Thank you, everybody. Take
Love
care.
you all.